some connectivity problem and the learning problem also. So fever with lymphodepeny is an interesting topic and a common topic also, and it's a very good module. I thank the organizers, especially the Tamil Nadu State Branch, the Madurai, as well as the Viluppuram Pondicherry chapter, which has taken up the issue and given me the opportunity to present this fever with lymphadenopathy. See, before we go to say that there is fever with lymph node enlargement, we must know what is the normal size of the lymph node at various age group. Generally, we can find out whether it is normal or abnormal depending upon the size. See, in neonates, less than 1 centimeter is normal. For children more than 1 month, in most of the regions, the lymph node size is less than 1 centimeter in the longest diameter. But if in the epitracheal region, it is only 0.5 centimeters, whereas in the endothelial region, if it is less than 1.5 centimeters only, it is taken as a normal. To say that it is abnormally enlarged, if it is in the axillary and cervical, we take it as more than 1 centimeter. And if it is associated with hepatomegaly or splenomegaly, especially we say that there is hepatomegaly when it is more than 3 centimeters in newborn and it is more than 2 centimeters below the causal margin in older age group, and splenomegaly more than 2 centimeters. See, the lymphadenopathy is usually discussed in the following manner that it may be localized or generalized. We say that it is a significant, while presentation in the undergraduate level also we said that there is significant lymphadenopathy present. Why? When we say it is significant, we say it is significant depending upon the size, consistency, fluctuation, tenderness, fixation and all. See, lymphadenopathy may be associated with liver enlargement and spleen enlargement also, and lymphadenopathy with fever. That is the one which we are going to discuss now. It may be localized or generalized. Coming to the various causes of the localized and generalized lymphadenopathy. The localized lymphadenopathy, we see it is present only in one region. It usually suggests local causes. You have to search for any pathology in the area which is draining that node. Sometimes some systemic disease also may present with the localized lymphadenopathy. Coming to the generalized lymphadenopathy, here 2 or more non-contagious regions, lymph nodes are mostly involved, and usually it is a manifestation of systemic disease. Coming to the causes of localized and generalized lymphadenopathy, in the localized it may be viral or bacterial, sometimes even tuberculosis, even Kawasaki. So here you have to mainly concentrate on the infection draining in those areas. And in the generalized, again we have viral. In the viral, we have Epstein-Barr, cytomegalo, HIV and all. Some drugs can also cause generalized lymphadenopathy like Eptoin and all. Tuberculosis, certain inflammatory disorders like juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, SLE, malignancy we should not forget. So it may be localized or generalized. It may be associated with the hepatitis splenomegaly also, as already told. So if it is a localized lymphadenopathy, we have to concentrate mainly in the draining area, and if more than 2 or more lymph node groups are involved, it is called generalized, where you have to look for systemic cause also. But in all the cases, you have to concentrate on growth monitoring also, and you should also look for any associated anemia or any organomegaly, that is a hepatosplenomegaly mainly. What are all the red flags? See, most of the time, the mother is very much worried if she finds a lymph node, because she wants to know, or she is very much worried whether it may be due to tuberculosis or the rare possibility of it may be malignancy and all. So these are the, and most of the time we convince the parents that it is only of a small issue. It will subside on its way with local antibiotics and some systemic antibiotic for a week or so. But if there are certain red flags, you should be aware of it. That is, if there is any associated symptoms, systemic symptoms like fever more than 1 week, or if there is any weight loss more than 10% of the body weight at any time, and supraclavicular nodes, that is very much worrisome. Supraclavicular. If it is on the left side, it shows that it is intra-abdominal malignancy. If it is on the right side, it shows that it may be due to intrathoracic malignancies. Then generalized lymphadenopathy, not localized, it is also of very much concern. And fixed nodes, nodes, it's also a red flag sign. Then when you do some investigation also, that may also throw some red flags. That is, in the investigation, if you find by the X-ray chest, the mediastinal mass or presence of hilar adenopathy and abnormal blood counts and differential counts may point you towards the lymphoma or leukemia. That is more than one cell line being involved. It gives you a warning for you. Then persistently elevated ESR and CRP in spite of adequate antibiotic therapy may also be one of the red flag signs. Then this slide shows some of the common associated features that may give you a clue. You need not go for any detailed investigations. Based on that, you can go to specific investigation. See, most of the time, if it is a recent upper respiratory infection, the cervical lymph node is mostly involved. If there is an associated fever, pharyngitis, and moderately tender lymph node, along with splenomegaly, you suspect infectious mononucleosis. If it is associated with flu-like symptoms with a single swollen cervical lymph node, you go for toxoplasmosis. Tuberculosis is usually painless, gradually progressive, and most of the time you may get mated nodes. If it is associated with arthralgia, muscle weakness, rash, and other things, you have to suspect autoimmune. Then, if there is fever, night sweats, and unexplained weight loss, then you have to suspect tuberculosis or collagen disorder. Then, if it is associated with the petechiae purpura, along with the splenomegaly, naturally you have to suspect leukemia. And finally, you have to suspect HIV when there is fever, associated fatigue, pharyngitis, rash, malaise, arthralgia, and keratitis. So you should not forget about HIV. Coming to some certain case discussion, see, this 10-month-old baby presented with a very high fever, neck swelling, weight being 8 kg, just only 4 days of history. On examination, there is a tender, warm node present, and there is fluctuation also present there. Rest of the clinical examination being normal. See, what we should do at this stage? See, since there is fluctuation, it is always better to go for IND and send the pus for culture and go for some antibiotics. Which antibiotic you have to choose? That is the next question arises. See, the likely pathogen being Streptococcus pyogenes or Staphylococcus aureus or methicillin-sensitive Streptococcus aureus. Here we use first generation cephalosporins is the ideal choice. If it is going to be MRSA, in that case we may going for higher antibiotics like Vanco, clindamycin, linezolid, sometimes even trimethoprim group. See, the pus culture report came as a beta-lactam is producing Staphylococcus, which is sensitive to Vanco, Clinda, linezolid, and amikacin, but it was resistant to rest of the things like oxacillin, erythromycin, penicillin group, ampicillin, and even Septron. So at this, which one will be the ideal drug we have to choose? So of these are the methicillin sensitive or the hospital acquired MRSA or communicated MRSA or coagulase negative Staphylococcus. So of which one is the one the culture proved is community acquired methicillin resistant Staphylococcus. So in this, what antibiotic we should prefer? See, these are all the antibiotics: Coam, Ciclave, Ampicillin, Cloxacillin, vancomycin, clindamycin, and the Ceptron group. These are all sensitive to this MRSA. Of this, the penicillin group has been ruled because it was not sensitive, and the Ceptron groups are also not sensitive. The remaining one is vancomycin and clindamycin. Among this, vancomycin is the one which has to be given IV. So, for such as child with a single lymph node with where you have drained the pus, they need not go for IV antibiotics. So clindamycin, which can be given orally, can be the good choice. So the clindamycin and Ceptron both are given, can be given oral, but since here the Ceptron group is resistant, we have to go for clindamycin. So the message here is you have to give treatment when there is fluctuation, go for IM depending upon the sensitivity pattern on clindamycin. What is it if it recurs? See, recurrence means there are only 3 or 4 things. There is the IND has not been done properly. There is improper drainage, or you are choosing some drug-resistant antibiotic, or if there is any underlying abscess or some intracellular organisms, or whether it has any system disease. So these are all the causes for recurrence of these adenitis. So next one is an 18-month-old boy who is unvaccinated and weight being 7.6 kg only. Here is having, see, the picture clearly shows here as a neck swelling, 2 months duration, and there was no response to antibiotic treatment. How proceed in this case? See, the investigation has shown that hemoglobin being 7.5, ESR is raised, Manto is 12 millimeters. So, will you go by the Manto and ESR and straight away start AKT? That is the big question. See, always you should go for microbial diagnosis of tuberculosis. Then only you should start anti-tuberculosis. You should not go for and starting the ATT just by Manto reading alone. So you have to go for microbial diagnosis. And also, as already mentioned, you should rule out HIV in these cases also, because the weight is also somewhat higher and the baby is also anemic also. So what are all the investigations that we may do for identifying the tuberculosis? CB-NAT is the one which is commonly done, and of course this child is being HIV non-reactive. So tuberculosis, coming to the algorithm for identifying tuberculosis nodes. See, if it is an enlarged node which is mated and cold abscess being present with or without a discharging sinus, you should think more in favor of tuberculosis, and you should go for smear examination with and stains, of course, with CB-NAT and other things. If the diagnosis is confirmed by person aspirate from the FNAC, you straight away go for anti-TB treatment. If there is no granuloma or there is no caseating granuloma, you go for lymph node biopsy in those cases. If it is not suggestive of these things, you have to go for alternative diagnosis. If the lymph node is enlarged very much, more than 2 centimeters in one or other sides, you just prescribe antibiotic for 1 week or 10 days, then review after 2 weeks. If there is no response, then suspect tuberculosis, then follow the algorithm pattern. Next one. Here, this child, 8-year-old boy with history of fever for 6 days with 100 degrees temperature, having dry cough and throat pain for 3 days, and he had got follicles over the tonsils with an exudate and a cervical lymphadenopathy. So, of course, the picture clearly shows that it is most of the time we treat the diagnosis of provisional diagnosis of a bacterial tonsillopharyngitis. So usually go for the antibiotic, amoxicillin group of antibiotic. This child has been given amoxicillin as well as paracetamol. but there was no response by day 3, and fever persisted more than 72 hours. Fever continuously high. And the child also started having rash and also having vomiting also. And the child looks more sick now. Then the child also had developed peripheral edema and has got petechial spots over the palate with few scattered macular rash over the face and chest, and is also having bilateral cervical lymph node of more than 3 centimeters along with hepatosplenomegaly. Here the hemoglobin is 9.6 and total count peripheral counts are almost normal only. Platelet is normal, but the peripheral smear, see the peripheral smear as typically has shown atypical lymphocytes. So that gives us a clue that it is not a simple case of lymphadenopathy with fever. We have to think of some other diagnosis. Which one? That is clinical diagnosis, infectious mononucleosis, because of the atypical lymphocyte being present. See, if there is a fever, sore throat, headache, periorbital edema with moderate to severe pharyngitis and petechiae and soft palate, and also associated with macropapular rash over the trunk, which is more exaggerated with the starting of initial treatment of the amoxicillin, along with this tender hepatosplenomegaly and with the tender generalized lymphadenopathy, the diagnosis of infectious mononucleosis is entertained, which has been proved by the presence of atypical lymphocytes, also known as Downy cells, being seen in the smear. So these are the atypical. See, these atypical lymphocytes may be seen in addition to the Epstein-Barr virus. It may also be seen in cases of cytomegalovirus, varicella virus, and toxoplasmosis also. In addition to the peripheral smear, if you want to confirm, you can go for some serological studies like IgM, looking for IgM antibody, and Epstein-Barr virus specific antibodies also you can test. And ELISA and IF commonly used to identify Epstein-Barr virus. So this one, how the peripheral smear, the picture, that the CBC is helping us to narrow down the diagnosis of lymphadenopathy. See, if more than one cell line is involved in the CBC, it is more in favor of leukemia, lymphoma, and some metastatic diseases. Then, if there is isolated leukemia, neutropenia, it's more in favor of viral infection. If it is leukocytosis with shift to the left, that is more important. It's more in favor of bacterial infection. When you say atypical lymphocytes, as we have seen in the previous case, it goes more in favor of Epstein-Barr and cytomegalovirus. And there is associated anemia, you should think of SLE and tuberculosis. When there is thrombocytosis, you should think of inflammatory disorders like Kawasaki and Sogia. Then if there is thrombocytopenia, you should have in mind the leukemia along with HLH and SLE also. So this 3-year-old girl with the history of fever has got a high-grade fever for 7 days, admitted for 2 days somewhere, and treated with ceftriaxone, because most of the time fever of 7 days, 2 days, 4 or 5 days, we start thinking in terms of entry can start on ceftriaxone. It is also started on ceftriaxone and with paracetamol, ibuprofen and paracetamol, but there was no response. On examination, the child was irritable, having dry skin and red tongue, and also associated left cervical lymphadenitis with red eyes, not purulent, but red eyes with systemic examination. Other things are normal. So here the positive findings being red tongue, skin with pallor and red eyes. So what is it in your mind? So here the platelet count is very much increased. See, the platelet count is increased. See, ERP and ESR. ESR is more than 20 within an hour. And chest ultrasound examination, they were all normal. So it is more in favor of Kawasaki disease. So what are all the criteria for Kawasaki disease? See, clinically, among the 5, if 4 are present, we go in favor of Kawasaki disease. That is erythema of the lips or oral cavity or cracking of the lips, rashes over the trunk, swelling or erythema of the hands and feet, red eyes, that is conjunctival injection, which is non-purulent, and swollen lymph node on the neck, at least 15 millimeters in size. So that goes in favor of Kawasaki disease. So this is a pictorial representation of the cervical lymph nodes, strawberry tongue, cracked lips, non-purulent conjunctivitis. And you can also see the also. See, along with that, actually accelerated BCG score also we can notice. Activation. Having not Kawasaki, what is not Kawasaki? If there is an exudative conjunctivitis, if there is an exudative pharyngitis, if there is discrete intraoral lesions, bullous or vesicular arrest, generalized adenopathy, these are all conditions which are not in favor of Kawasaki disease. So we have dealt with most of the cases of infectious causes of lymph node anomaly. What are all the non-infective causes of lymphadenopathy? See, these are all the non-infective causes. These are Kawasaki disease, Sogia, SLE, malignancy, storage disorders, and drug-induced causes. These are all. So just lymph node enlargement doesn't mean that it should be only due to infection, either viral or bacterial. So it can be due to non-infective causes also. See, this child, 15-year-old, presented the prolonged fever and malaise. There was no history of any weight loss. Had several lymph nodes in the neck, which are non-tender and rubbery. System examination was normal, and there was no organomegaly. See, these are all the investigations. See here, the hemoglobin is 13, CBC, there was not much of anything. Then in the peripheral spleen also, there was no normal cells here noted. Then LFT is almost normal. Then tuberculosis sensitivity is Mantoux test is negative. Epstein-Barr is positive. Then mycoplasma IgM negative. Here, see in the ultrasound abdomen, you see peripancreatic and periportal nodes, noticed 1 to 2 centimeters. In the CT abdomen, the lymph nodes are homogeneous, and we see mesenteric nodes. The mesenteric nodes have been noted. Then in the FNAC is only reactive lymph nodes present. See here in the peripherals there, that is, you can see the cells. Necrotizing histiocytic lymphadenitis, absent neutrophils, and its presence of normal histiocytes and lymphocytosis. So this goes more in favor of Kikuchi syndrome. So you should not think that all the lymph node enlargement is mainly due to infection. So it may be due to Kawasaki, or in certain cases, it may be due to Kikuchi also. So when you are thinking of Kikuchi, you must always follow the case, because in certain conditions they may go in for associated development of SLE. They may to SLE also. So in these cases, you have to go for tissue diagnosis. In certain cases, you might have to go for tissue diagnosis. Tissue diagnosis mainly we go for FNAC is the one which we always initially do, because it is very simple and safe. But there are certain limitations in FNAC because of the inadequate specimen, and there is a high rate of false negative diagnosis. So ultrasonography guided FNAC is the one which gives more precise information when compared to simple FNAC. So the next one is a 18-month-old male child, a second birth by order, born for a second-degree consanguineous marriage, full term, birth weight being 2.67 kg, normal delivery, presented with the recurrent illnesses, had an episode of diarrhea and admitted by 8 months, and had Valry and 13 months. So he had recurrent infection, repeated visits have been noted, and many antibiotics have been started in this child. On examination, the baby is irritable On examination, the baby is irritable, vitals are all stable, but there is undernutrition is there with frontal bossing, depressed nasal bleed, AF is wide open with liver and spleen is very much enlarged, liver and spleen being very much enlarged, and in the cervical region you get bilateral cervical rubbery lymph nodes, but there is no clubbing. See, this clubbing, absence of clubbing rules out any suppurative lung disease because the child has been having recurrent infection and has been even previously admitted. So that rules out any lung pathology in this case. So there is liver and spleen enlargement with lymph node enlargement along with pallor and all. So here we may have to rule out leukemia, that is because it may be a non-infectious, it may be. So we have to rule out leukemia and storage disorder also. You have to keep in mind that because that will present with hepatosplenomegaly also. So for that, the investigations have been done. See here, the platelet is 80,000, liver almost within normal limits only. Then HIV has been done, it is negative. X-ray is also not only. Ultrasound, you have hepatosplenomegaly with normal epitexture only. See, on bone marrow examination, you see, you can clearly see the cells, characteristic lipid-laden foamy histiocytes, which are named as Niemann-Pick cells. That has been clearly demonstrated. So, the diagnosis of Niemann-Pick disease has been entertained in this child. So, when coming to the fever with localized lymphadenopathy, this is the flow chart. If it is of less than 1 week duration, it may be due to reactive or mostly due, if it is bacterial and tender, and it will be tender, and also there will be fluctuations. If it is subacute, that is 1 to 3 weeks duration, you should always investigate for complete blood count, ESR, along with the mantle test and X-ray test, if needed, as fine needle aspiration cytology along with ultrasound. If it is of a chronic duration, then biopsy is the one which is lymph node biopsy will be helpful, along with CT and MRI in specific cases you can go for. If it is a generalized lymph node enlargement, along with the history and physical examination, if there is if it is a chronic chronic progressive and painless condition, then you have to think of, along with, if it is present with the fever, rash, joint, and organomegaly, some zoonosis also you should think of. Here you should do, along with the routine investigation, serology, HIV, CMV, and also biopsy also you should do. Then yet another category is drug exposure. Drug exposure. Here, drug hypersensitivity, drug syndrome, so they have to be entertained. If it is a chronic progressive painless, then you may also, if it is painless and progressive also, you should do biopsy bone marrow. If needed, you may have refer. So, in conclusion, you have to think of common things while you are dealing with a case of lymph node enlargement, but at the same time, you should think of some uncommon causes also. So, common presentation of uncommon diseases and uncommon presentation of common diseases, and you should also focus not only in the local region, you should also focus on the systemic diseases as well. Thank you. Thank you for the patient hearing. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I will stop sharing.
So, concluding remarks by Dr. Abesha. Thank you. Any concluding remarks, sir?
Yeah. So, Dr. All the Tamil Nadu branch, Pondicherry and Madurai branch, it was a wonderful show from all of you. All the three branches
sir.
have nicely coordinated the event. I thank all the coordinators and all the moderators and all the faculty for their presence. Of course, our Senthil Kumar is there. All the we met Dr. Vijay Prabhu, Dr. Uh, Arul Kumar, Muthu Kumar, Dr. Manjusha. All I'm very very thankful to you, all the faculty members, and I thank all the delegates for their interactive uh, participation. So thank you once again, and we look forward to more and more such type of